Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. The Swim Brief, I've been forgetting to say, is brought to you by Jersey Wahoos, a silver medal club for the third year in a row. And we're going to talk more about that later with today's guest. We are joined finally by Dr. Jake Shackelford. It says here you got your PhD.
Put that out in the world.
It says here you got your PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, specifically the School of Hard Knocks. Is that accurate?
Yeah, about as accurate as it can be. Yeah, I did attend school at the University of Whitewater. That is accurate. Yes.
Under the tutelage of Joel Rawlings, who people listen to this podcast. Yeah. Love the stylings of Joel Rawlings, and he was your college swim coach.
Yeah. Joel's one of a kind. I remember meeting him for the first time. He came on deck at Schrader, the club that I swam for in high school, and he was there recruiting another kid from our team, and he was like, "Where are you going to school?" I was like, "I think I'm going here." And he's like, "Well, you should pop down for a visit." And I visited, and he was great. And so, the rest is history. Spent 4 years under Joel, and his joke was always that the one thing I hope for all my athletes is for them not to be swim coaches. So I don't know if I did something right or something wrong, but here we are.
You did it for him. Yeah. So I had Abby Lou on recently, and you were at that national select camp. So want to talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about USA Swimming Club Excellence, because you're my main source of information on what the hell that is and understanding. And I think I'm only like a year or two away from understanding how USA Swimming Club Excellence works. And then we want to talk about an athlete from Jersey Wahoos, Maddie Waggoner, that was on the USA Swimming National Junior Team. So first, back it up to the National Select Camp. What made you want to coach at a National Select Camp in the first place?
Yeah, so I've been involved with USA Swimming camps pretty early on. I was my former boss, Norm Wright, who's now the head coach of Nova, Virginia. I worked with him at the Northern Kentucky Clippers for 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And he was really, really pushing me early on in my coaching career to get involved and do these things. So I did a zone select camp in 2018, Central Zone Select Camp in 2018. And it was a great experience. I loved it. I still talk to a lot of the coaches that I work with to this day. There was a group text that went on for years where we would keep up with each other and keep up with what the athletes that we worked with were doing. And it was just a really great experience and helped me grow as a coach. And so the next step naturally is to go up a level and try to be a part of a national select camp. So obviously, I moved jobs at one point during that in 2019 and moved out here to New Jersey, and pandemic happened. There's really no opportunities for that. So when I saw that they were taking applications for the National Select Camp, this was in March of this year, I jumped at it.
Yeah. And was it everything you hoped it would be?
Yeah, more actually.
Okay.
No, it's normally, in a normal setting, in a normal year, this would always be in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center. So this year was different. And we were out in Chula Vista in San Diego, just south of San Diego, close enough to see the border and see Tijuana. It was pretty wild. But there's a elite training center, a USOPC elite training center in Chula Vista without a pool.
As noted by Abby. Yeah,
as you do. But we USA Swimming put together the opportunity for 51 girls and 51 boys to go to a camp, and then they also have a 51 kids at a national diversity camp this week. So total of 153 athletes over 3 weeks in Chula Vista at the elite training center there. And it was a great experience. Great coaches. USA swimming staff was fantastic. The kids were unbelievable to work with. And it's always a lot of fun. Re-energizes you as a coach, but you learn a lot at the same time.
Yeah, I think one of the best points that I heard you make there, and Abby made it when I talked with her as well, is just getting to know some athletes and coaches from all, sort of different parts of the country.
Yeah.
I remember when I graduated college, I worked at a boarding school for a year, and I was forced into coaching soccer, and I'd never played soccer in my life. Right. So, I was trying to sort of find like how can I contribute? And I think I mainly contributed as doing some conditioning, making kids run, and I could figure out intervals and, how to like get their mile pace down a little bit and that kind of stuff. But over the year, like I learned a lot, and it became more and more fun to watch. And I think that was swimming as well. In a lot of cases, we don't know a lot about the athletes. The swimming media is still really small. So if we go to a swim meet, somebody's name is attached to a time on the page, and you think like, oh yeah, that person's pretty fast, or whatever, but you don't really know anything about them. So getting out there to meet some other people, like it just makes it more fun to consume these meets, because, now you're going to be looking at the next junior nationals. You're going to be wondering like, oh, how did she do? How did she do? How did she do? I think that part of it is really great.
Yeah, it's great you learn a lot from, and I know Abby said this as well, but you learn a lot from how athletes carry themselves. I think more outside the pool than in the pool, right? And these are the kids that the best clubs in the country are sending their top kids, right? And this is what they are and how they've developed, and you can kind of see them in their personalities and how they operate on deck, and how they operate in a eating setting. How do they take care of themselves, right? It's really interesting, kind of seeing all these things and how they're still able to keep it really light, and they love the sport and they're really engaged by it and are really easy to coach is probably the number one thing.
Yeah. You talk about eating settings. I took a group of kids from Denmark to Zurich, Switzerland for a meet once. It was one of the first times I had traveled with some of the kids, and we were eating all our meals together. And I realized I had a 14-year-old girl on my team who didn't know how to hold a fork properly. So watching her eat dinner with a fork, like their fist wrapped around her fork. And I was like, I can't, I'm sorry. I need to teach you how to use a fork right now. I don't know how this happened, but we can't let this go any farther.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But I was, I'm always impressed by our kids here and kids at that level of how well they take care of themselves now. It's just, there's so much more information, and that was what they were doing. And, they just soak it all up, right? All these meetings, there's no downtime really at a camp like this. It's 4 days. They're going from practice to a meeting to eating to, going to bed and getting up early for practice again. So there's really no downtime for these kids, but they just soak up every ounce of information that anybody can give them, right? What can they glean from it? And I was doing the same thing. From the different coaches and the different USA swimming staff that were there and the people they brought in to talk and speak. It was great. Really, really great.
On that note, give me one thing. Like, I know you've since off air, like since you come back, I think you've given me like 5 things, but I want you to pick your favorite child of an idea or something that stuck with you from the 4 days. Like what's the big takeaway for you?
I think the big takeaway is, in being on deck with Russell Mark a good amount, it's really interesting to pick his brain a little bit about, how these different kids are all swimming. What does he see? What does he see from national team members? What's the difference? Where's the, training element and all this, and kind of how all these things interact, right? And we've been having these conversations ourselves, you know what I mean? about the technical side of the sport and the training side of the sport, and how they mesh and come together to create amazing athletes. And then what do the athletes themselves do as a part of that? And that was the big thing for me, is how much ownership those kids took of everything that you would say to them. The littlest things, they were taking that ownership. And what I take away is, all right, how do I create environments where our athletes are having that same level of engagement?
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing, because it's like, so many coaches, I think many coaches know a lot about how to get faster. They know a lot, but it's a matter of, can they deliver that information? Can they set the people that they're coaching up to be able to receive that information?
And what's the environment like as well around them, right? Is the environment set up, and that's an environment where it's very easy, obviously, right? So
it's an ideal setup.
So the ideal setup, right? There's nothing else going on. There's no distractions. So, how do you lean that down to your, top high school athletes, and how does that transition down into the age group level? And, just some different things to think about of how can we help these kids, be their very best.
Yeah. All right. I want to pivot to talking about club excellence. Jersey Wahoos, as we mentioned off the top, we are a silver medal club. Once again, we finished 27th in the rankings. I know we were sitting in the office many an afternoon and trying to crunch the numbers on like how close we might be, because we've got our eye on that top 20. That's what makes you a gold medal club. And you're like, in our office, I would say you're our go-to for like, what is going on? How are we doing in this? So just for like people who maybe like me, who have very little exposure to club excellence, give a little bit of an overview of like what that means when you're a silver medal club. And we scored something around, we scored 19 around 20,000 points is what I was going to say.
500 points thereabout. Yeah. So you score points based off of the FINA points table, which is, as you would know from overseas, is really important, is what is based off the world record. Right.
So 1,000 points is the world record time.
Yeah.
If you break a world record, you're going to have an over 1,000 point FINA swim.
Yes, exactly. And the baseline time that USA Swimming uses for anybody to be able to score is USA Swimming Junior Nationals, right? Which is kind of the gold standard meet for 18 and unders in this country. And we've had the conversations that USA Swimming Junior Nationals is pretty regularly on par with most multi-nation junior level meets in other countries, right? Like it is a bit of step above
I would,
single countries junior level meet in other countries.
Well, there's no other country that has a junior meet that's on par. I would say European juniors is pretty close. But typically
not higher level kids, but
typically similar high level, less depth at the European junior level.
The depth at USA Swimming Junior Nationals is crazy, but it's a really high level of achievement in USA Swimming. Right.
Yes.
I know the stat. It's something like less than 1%. It's like 1% or 1.5% of all USA Swimming athletes 18 and under achieve that qualifying standard. Right. So it's a really, really high level of achievement.
Even if you do the math, like I think we were saying, there's maybe about 500,000 competitive swimmers in the US. And sometimes we have two, junior national meets each with about 1,000 people on it. That's way less than 1% of 500,000.
So it's probably less. So it's a really high level of achievement. So, but in order to score points towards club excellence, you have to have that as the baseline. And so that's considered a bronze medal swim, right? Okay. And so that's strict points. If your swim was 700 points, you score 700 points towards club excellence. And then every tier you go up from bronze to silver to gold, the level expected and the time standards that are set by USA Swimming go up pretty significantly, right? So if you're looking at a girls 400 IM, right, the junior national cut's 457. This is long course only. Short course yards are not involved in any way. And it would drop down to 454 for a silver medal, or maybe a little bit faster, and then 449 for a gold medal standard, which puts you right around top 100, top 150 in the world rankings, right? So that's generally how they kind of go about finding that gold medal standard, is top 100 in the world for women, top 150 in the world for men, as 18 and under men tend to be a little bit, farther behind than some of the 18 and under women. So, in order to be a silver medal club, you have to have at least one standard, one swim at that silver medal level. So you could score 100,000 points, and if it's all only junior national level qualifying times, you are a bronze medal club. So there's a little bit of a tier system as well when it comes down to it, but ultimately it's about getting as many kids as possible to the highest level of achievement in our sport.
Yeah. And I guess, what do I want to ask next? As I understand it from you, this year we were doing a lot of guesswork about where we stood in the standings, and they're updating the system so that actually you might know over the course of the year where you sit.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. It's always been like this big Excel math game going on behind the scenes of trying to figure out. It's fairly easy to figure out your own, because you can take all your swims and put them into the FINA table, and there's an equation that you can use. And so I knew what our points was going to be, right? And in a standard year, to be a gold medal team, obviously you have to have a gold medal swim, which we had 3 of this year, 2 by Maddie Waggoner and 1 by Erin Kavanaugh. So that standard was taken care of. And then obviously you have to score top 20 teams in the country as well. So that's where it gets really hard. And in a normal year, it's anywhere between as low as 19,000 to as high as 23, 24,000, which is what it was this year. It took 23,000 points to score and be a top 20 club in the country, which is about as high as it's been in the history of USA Swimming. So it kind of shows you how many teams take this seriously, as not the entirety of their program, but as a serious piece of what they are trying to accomplish every year. So we are definitely one of them.
Everybody excuse the noise of my ring alarm in the background going absolutely crazy. I don't know, maybe it's a windy day or something. No, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. Yeah. And actually, it took me a couple more days. As I said, I'm still learning the system, but it took me a couple more days to realize that because the system is based on FINA points, you can compare year to year. So 23,000 points is the same, as 23,000 points.
Yeah, because as you get better,
because it's a relative ranking.
Change, kids get faster. So to me, in 2008 or whatever, if you scored a certain amount of points, or 2012, you scored a certain amount of points, world records are a little bit slower. So even though the junior national standards and all these standards are a little slower, the kids have gotten faster over the last 10 years, significantly so. But the standards are ever increasing. So it takes more and more to reach those standards every time. So it's a pretty good barometer of where you're at, where you've been in your history. And, this is the first time that Jersey Wahoos has been as high as 27th in the country. Have a great history here of being a silver medal club numerous times and scoring as much as 17 or 19,000 points on our own, and being 29th in the country. So it's a big achievement in a club with the amount of history of Jersey Wahoos to be the best in something like that we've ever been. So it's pretty exciting year for us. Yeah.
And I think, we've been thinking about how to communicate about it internally. And I know some people on our own team do listen to this. So I think that, for instance, people that listen to this know I coach a senior group on our team. And I realized I forgot to announce to that group on Monday that we had this team achievement. So we stopped practice to talk about it. last night, and I wanted those kids to know, and I think any kid on the club should know that like this is truly, even though the points scored for this come from the highest end competitive end of our team, you don't get to that level just by focusing on a small group of athletes. Like
No.
it takes every level that we have sort of pushing upwards, and then that's
Yes.
how you get people all the way up at the top.
Yeah, I remember having this conversation in the spring with a group of our athletes on the national squad about, a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah.
So as much of the achievement was on our junior national qualifying athletes, it was the same amount of achievement by the athletes that qualified for senior champs for the first time. Right. When you raise the level of everybody in the group, the only place to go is up. Right. And I really truly believe that, as everybody lifts their standards and achieves more for themselves, it only makes it easier for the top athletes to achieve more as well. Right. It's because achievement becomes normal, performance becomes normal, and success becomes normal as well. So,
yeah. Another big accomplishment, Maddie Waggoner named to the USA Swimming National Junior Team. Again, just give people that are listening like a little bit of an overview. This stuff I'm more familiar with, but
yeah,
it still explain it to me like I'm 5. How USA Swimming picks people for these teams, right? We have a national senior team, or we have a national team, I should say.
Yep.
We have a national junior team. We have an open water national team. Like, how do people get on these teams?
So for the national team, it's the top 6 athletes of any age in every single Olympic event, right? And the same goes for open water, right? So Olympic event is the 10K. If you are the top 6 in the 10K open water, you are on the open water national team, right? So if you make a national team, right, you're automatically not disqualified, but you're above the level of a national junior team. So therefore, even though you're 18 and under, if you made, the national team this year, you're not eligible for the same event for the national junior team. So
you might be a junior athlete anyway, but if you're on the national team,
yeah, you
can't be on the national junior team as well.
Yeah, exactly. So and then they kind of work down from there, right? They look at the top swimmers that are 18 and under as of September 1st of this year. So some people get a little confused because there are definitely a pretty significant amount of college athletes, especially on the men's side. But if they're 18 years old as of September 1st, they are a junior level swimmer in the eyes of USA Swimming, and so they qualify, right? And so they take the times over the last year through August 31st, and they pick a set number of athletes, right? Instead of a set number of people per event. And so you end up with a team that's comprised of, I think it was 43 girls and some smaller number of boys. I can't remember. Didn't look at the boys quite as specifically since we didn't have a boy make the team. So,
right.
So you'll get a lot of athletes that double, right, in events. And so you'll see some events, unlike the national team, which is very strict, 6 in every event. You'll see some events like Maddie's event, the mile, 1500, where there was a significant amount of athletes, 8, right? And then you'll see an event like the 100 breaststroke where there was 2 athletes, right? Yeah. So it's a set number of athletes. It's also based off of world rankings, right? So they automatically pick 26. They get the 2 from every single event. And then they start going down the list of, who are our best athletes in the country and who do they believe they can represent our country internationally. And that's who they're trying to select, right? So they do look at world rankings as part of that as well. So.
And I guess I forgot to, and we'll just rewind a little bit to the club excellence stuff. I mean, what does it actually mean in terms of like, what do you get for being a silver medal club in
Yeah.
USA Swimming. And what do you get for being on the national junior team besides like a pat on the back and a good job this year? Like,
No,
keep it up.
So the Club Excellence is essentially a grant funding program for USA Swimming. So it's how they have positioned to try to see what clubs are producing the best talent in the country on a consistent basis, and then providing them with funding to continue that effort, right? So depending on the year, the funding can be a little bit different, but there's a set standard for how much you get as a gold medal club, how much you get as a silver medal club, and how much you get as a bronze medal club. And then there's a tier system as well.
Yeah.
That goes along with that. So that's essentially what it is. But I think, what it provides as far as a club for us is its credibility, right? In what we do in our mission and how we are able to be successful across all levels of our sport, right? It's the same way we would promote, having won a JOs, right? For 2 years running or 3 years running, right? We promote that, hey, our kids are at the highest levels of the sport. If you come and swim for us, anything is possible, right? We have success along every level of our program, not just in the age group, not just in the senior. We do it across the board, and that's just a really good way to promote, the success of our club and how amazing our athletes are. But essentially, what it comes down to is a USA Swimming kind of grant funding program.
Yeah, and we're coming off a year, I think, where we had this national level recognition. We won our LSC senior championship. We won our LSC age group championship. So there's a lot going on in that respect. How about national junior team? Like, what do you get for being on the national junior team? What are the perks?
That's a little more challenging. It's been different across the different years. So, before Mitch Dalton was the national junior team director for a good number of years, who's now the associate head coach of the University of Texas women. And he was there. And so before COVID, what you would get national junior team gear, USA Swimming gear. There would be a training camp in the spring over spring break, where athletes would come in and out over, I think, around a 2-week period and get to train with everybody on the national junior team. And then in June or some time of the year, you would get to go on a team travel international trip with USA Swimming, and they would usually be to the Mel Zajac meet in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Right. So there's definitely some perks that go along with it. The last national junior team that we've had, the past years, didn't really do anything.
Right.
I'm sure they got some gear, some national junior team gear, but unfortunately, there just wasn't a ton of opportunities for travel or being able to train in one place. So, unfortunate for those guys, but I think they did a really good job of, they kept everybody from the year before, right? So they didn't kick anybody off the national junior team, and they tried to add more that year and give as much as they could over the last year and a half that we've had. But, I'm pretty hopeful that there's some great stuff coming from Maddie, and exciting, fun things that she gets to do. But, they haven't announced anything specific yet. So, we just keep moving day to day and, tell her how amazing it is, because it's an amazing accomplishment. Again, the history of this team has had, multiple members on the national junior team. It's something that this club has done in the past, but it is a different era of the national junior team. There used to be a time where the national junior team was 6 athletes, just like the national team. It's not quite that anymore, right? So it has shrunk, not considerably, but a fair amount. And so it's a great accomplishment then. It's an incredibly high accomplishment now. If you look at the amount of kids who go on to, pretty high levels of success in college and internationally, a very significant portion of them were on the national junior team.
Yeah. All right, we're going to bring this full circle to wrap up. I wonder if you wouldn't tell one story about Joel that he definitely wouldn't want you to tell on here,
Oh,
because I need to build up my compromise on Joel. I'm running out of things to give him a hard time about. And I
yeah.
wonder if you've got
Um,
any material for me.
yeah. Podcast material. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that, this is the right place for all.
He was a
No,
very good coach. He was
he's
very
great.
professional.
No, he was great. He's,
Maybe
yeah.
we should conclude with you talking about why you don't like Milton Elms. Milton Elms listens to the podcast, so now you can.
So yeah,
You
I mean,
can.
those are some funny stories. I think that it kind of wraps all encompassing. So Milton Elms, I got to meet through Joel, and he would come once a year
Yep.
to our pool, usually very early in the season, sometime in September or October, and I just remember confused looks by most of the kids, and then trying to get Joel to tell us what's going on and why is there this man who smells like Marlboro Reds and Diet Coke walking around our pool deck. And no, but I really grew to like him. But Joel was never ending with his jokes about all that stuff. So my biggest thing with Joel that I get to make fun of him for is just how he let a teammate of mine, Landon Joyner, walk around with a cane at a pool deck, pretending that he was a cripple for like an entire year. We always make that joke.
Why?
You got to ask him.
Okay, we'll ask him about that on the next one.
Team record holder for us. Team record holder for us. Great guy. But the times that Joel chose to really pick on somebody were always interesting to me.
So this wouldn't be like the time that I came back from going home for Christmas with fake crutches to convince my coach that I had hurt myself in a skiing accident while I was. That wouldn't like that.
No, because when it goes on for like an entire year, I would have thought like Joel's the guy that like is gonna call you out on your on your stuff.
Yeah, which
he did to me so many times.
He still does it.
It's all the time. I mean, I have to avoid some of his responses sometimes because but I don't want to hear too much. But he was funny. There's some stories of team meetings with the guys team at the University of Wisconsin Whitewater that were pretty funny. Ask him about suit sizes and his first 2 years on the team and what the decisions he had to make over men's suit sizes. That's a really good story. Really good.
I'll do that. I'm gonna make him tell him that one on when I talk to him here in a couple.
It's one of my favorites. I was there a little bit after that time, but it shows you what he had to deal with early on. He had to deal with us later, so he's a saint for that. So.
All right. Well, Jake, thanks so much for finally showing your face here. It takes a brave man to come up and face the music. Appreciate you.
Especially when you talk about me as much as.
That's right. I look forward to going back to talking about you behind your back on a recording.
Well, we have you surrounded.
That's right.
You've never been to the Midwest more than like once in your entire life, but somehow
and
you've surrounded yourself with people from the state of Wisconsin.
At this point, I don't think I need to. I think I've met you guys.
No, I think you figured all you need to. I know. Yeah. We were talking about this yesterday. It's like you found the 3 people in the entire state of Wisconsin who actually left and never went back.
Yeah. I think Minnesota, though, I definitely would love to go to Minnesota. It seems like a great state. It seems like so much better than Wisconsin. Like just amazing place. Like just phenomenal. Anyway, all right, I'm done. And thanks for joining me. And I will talk to you probably later today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Bye.
Have a great one. Bye.